With that being said, live captioning is available and the webinar is being recorded. The recording will be sent to registrants within a few days of today. I encourage you to use the chat for questions, and we will get to them as we progress through the presentations, and we will also have time for questions at the end. I'm Jennifer Coleman. I am the Director of Statewide Student-Facing Products and Programs out of the CCC Technology Center, and I welcome you to our monthly webinar series where we try to highlight some of the technology that we have been developing for use and benefit of you as our primary administrative users and our students across the system. So we'll go ahead and get started with our agenda. First of all, again, welcome and a couple of introductions. Thank you to Sandoval Chagoya, our Director of Communications from the Technology Center, for setting up all of our technology and making arrangements for the statewide webinar series for the benefit of our stakeholders and for making sure that all the technology is ready to roll. We also have Patty Donahue here who will be presenting on CCCApply and the progress that we've been making in terms of enhancements and refinements to that product. And we have Mike Caruso with CCC MyPath, who will be talking about some of the results that we're seeing out of the gap between application and enrollment that we're working to address, specifically utilizing MyPath. We also have some other representatives from our CCC Tech Center team with our enabling services and some of our other support staff here to assist with answering any questions that come up. Today, we're going to talk about how we are assisting colleges to leverage technology in support of student success, specifically by breaking down barriers that we have found exist that are keeping our students from getting into the classroom, whether that is at the point of application or somewhere between application and enrollment and attendance. We're going to talk about what that has meant in regards to a CCCApply redesign that has been student-centered and focused on how students access our technology, and so a secondary focus on being mobile-friendly. We're going to talk a little bit about how we've been gathering feedback and how we hope to have our colleges support us in continuing to gather feedback. And we're going to talk about building communities specifically around our technology and leveraging relationships and expertise out in the field via some tools that we have in place through the Tech Center. So we'll go ahead and get started now. I'm going to turn over the presentation, the speaking part, to Patty Donahue, our product manager for CCCApply, and she'll talk about the ways that we've been approaching the CCCApply redesign for about the last 2 years.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm gonna ask whoever's managing the slide deck, I'll just give you a cue and we'll progress from that. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
So hello everyone, my name is Patty Donahue. I'm the product manager for CCCApply. And you know, there's so many things we could talk about today, but we're gonna focus on, as Jennifer kind of laid out, you know, the CCCApply redesign project that we've been working on for the past 18, 19 months now. And you know, how we're, you know, where it originated from. And primarily it was from an Assembly Bill 3101, which was asking us to streamline the application, simplify it, and remove barriers, and also support non-credit students. But that kind of kicked off a series of studies, research that we did with collaborative stakeholders, including the Foundation of the California Community Colleges, a behavioral science study organization called Ideas 42, the Tech Center, and then the Chancellor's Office. So we jumped into this again. It was right around April, May of last year, and we knew that there was long-term goals that we wanted to achieve, and there were short-term goals. So we knew this was going to be probably a 2-year effort and start with a kind of a phased approach. While the behavioral study was going on by Ideas 42, we started looking at low-hanging fruit changes that we could make to streamline the application, which we did in a series of quarterly releases, and as well, tackle the non-credit application. So I'll be kind of highlighting that a little later. And while the behavioral study was going on, we started to, through meetings with them, starting to identify these key barriers and concerns that were coming up that I'm sure a lot of you are aware of. And it's been interesting. There were technology barriers, language barriers, and then, ambiguity across the application. So those were kind of the first key barriers that we looked at. So let's keep going. Some of this I repeat, so you can read along with me. So one of the things that came out of the design, the behavioral study work that Ideas 42 did was a series of design principles and the identification of these key barriers, and they were very helpful. Through their data analysis, they broke down all the data in the database. They went out and talked to students, staff, other stakeholders. They built and presented these design principles, which we are now incorporating into our development moving forward. Again, they're student-centric focus. And, if Apply, it's a very highly regulatory legal form. There's a lot of things we have to do for state, federal, local, MIS requirements. It's highly regulatory. So this shift to a student-centric focus is long overdue. So we kind of find the balance between, those two things. And that's what we're committed to. We're going to take these lessons learned. We've already been applying them and these guiding principles to the work that's underway now and future work.
And I do want to jump in here and talk a little bit about the fact that we are moving forward with a student-centered mindset. And because of the specifically regulatory and legal nature of Apply, in terms of having to collect certain information and having it serve a variety of capacities for use at the college level, it has been a sometimes tricky conversation to have and to decide where the priorities end up. And so we are navigating some of these conversations right now, specifically today as it relates to homeless students and students who may not have a social security number. So those are conversations that are going on at a variety of different levels and with input from legal and student advocacy groups and a number of different organizations to make sure that we're balancing the various components. So one of the things we want to make sure we do is communicate how that process is happening out to all of you as stakeholders, so you understand that the decisions are not being made in a vacuum, they're not being taken lightly, and that ultimately it's about the students, but through a lens of having to still collect certain data and have it available for your use.
Very good. Okay, let's keep going. I do want to mention though, if you get this slide deck with the recording, in the notes, I've linked some of these documents. There's two documents, the design principles. I think it's very interesting read, and the key barriers that were identified. So just letting you know. So going back to, they presented these design principles, but they were really based on these 5 key barriers to student success. And what I mean by they, it's again, this Ideas 42 behavioral study, in conjunction with the student journey report that was created around the same time. It was very helpful. And it paralleled these barriers and concerns, pretty straight on. So I thought I'd put this quote from the one of the documents, the 2 documents that are linked. This one is the diagnosis of the problem, where they identified the barriers, which are hassles. And these aren't necessarily in the order of the most, the biggest barrier isn't necessarily hassles, but they identified hassles. And I'm going to break these down a little bit more. Ambiguity across the application, identity. Is an interesting concept for me, but it makes sense. A lack of scaffolding overall throughout the app, and then uneven channels. So let's take a look at those a little bit more in depth. Next slide. But first, so these are also the principles that they brought to us in conjunction with these barriers. So we've got the principle on the left, and you can see those are basically the barriers that they identified. And then the guiding question that we will be using as we approach some of these, Jennifer mentioned the homeless issue that we're dealing with, and some of the language overall. I have another slide where I talk about those specifically around like undocumented students and the citizenship and immigration issues right now. Our language, needs to be less ambiguous, more student friendly, and less scary overall. So these are the things that we're working with. The open channels one is really important. I feel, it's opening more opportunities to reach out to the students. So in addition to the language and the tone and some of the other technical hassles, we want to focus on connecting to students. So eliminating ambiguity, these are some of the things we're struggling with right now because of that legal environment we have to operate under. We can't just get rid of legal text in some areas. Some is mandated. Some we are working with various stakeholder groups to help us navigate these waters. So just due to time, I'm not going to read everything, but these are those principles and the guiding questions. Let's take a look at that next slide real quick where we break it down. Again, I'm not going to go over all of this just because of time, but if you get this slide deck after, you can take a look at it. But what I think, we decided we wanted to present this because it shows not only the barrier and the issue that we knew we need to tackle, but the specific issues, and this is just a subset, but these are the main ones. And then what we've done so far, the milestones achieved to address these barriers, and also work that's planned. It's kind of mixed in a little bit, but as far as hassles, the application's too long. Students, some students felt that there were too many questions. The technology was not mobile friendly at the time. What we did originally in that first 6 months when we were looking at low-hanging fruit and other ways that we could, immediately start to pare down the application and make it shorter. We removed 3 pages from the application right away. We added some skip logic. Don't know if you noticed, but we added skip logic to the education page. We reformatted some questions on the residency page. The layout and the original format just didn't make sense. So just a little bit of reformatting really made a big difference. And based on that work, just a little bit of work we did in that first couple releases, we pared down the average time to completion. I did not put this chart in here, but I should have. Believe it or not, the average or the mean time to completion, when you throw away all the outliers, right? The apps that were submitted under 2 minutes, spam or otherwise, and the apps that, the majority of the applications, when we looked at them across the whole, 90% of them are submitted within 24 hours. So outliers were anything over a day we threw out. And then within that 24-hour set, 80% of those were submitted within an hour. And the majority of those, the mean time was 15 minutes. And that was before we started this. After we removed the pages and we did some reformatting, we actually were able to shave a minute off that. So if you want some more information about that, I'm sure my email address will be provided, and I can share some of that with you. So that went on in the early part of the redesign. And then the mobile-friendly redesign, we knew we needed to be mobile. And we immediately started that project last year, and we just released in October our mobile-friendly version of the standard app, the Noncredit app, the Promise Grant, and the International app. And currently we're working on the Open CCC piece. I have another slide that we'll get to, but so I won't go through all of this, but you can see, each barrier, there were concerns, and we either addressed them or we are addressing them now. For the identity piece, some of those were like, the student as a person was feeling and sharing concerns of, why am I being asked these personal questions? And I think the challenge in some of that is, they're federally mandated. We don't really have a choice. But are there ways that we can work with the language to make them understand, this isn't gonna, this isn't gonna determine your admission, but federal law requires us to do this. So we're looking at those across the board, and also ways that scaffolding can be incorporated. Next slide. Hopefully I'm doing okay on time. And then this last one that I feel like we'll be spending a lot of time on in the future is this uneven channels, the getting support to students and staff. The concerns though that we're looking at, are again, that students are abandoning the application and the college doesn't know why, and they don't know who. Now, there is a variety of reasons for that, as we know. Some students start an app for one college and then abandon it and end up applying to another. And it's hard for that college to see that. So, we're looking at all of that, but there's also, some, if the student was able to get help from the college, meaning if we could get the data to the college sooner instead of after they submit, that would give the college, that channel to reach out, say, hey, I noticed you started the app, you didn't finish the app. It's been 8 hours. I see that you left the app on the education page. How can we help? So we have a project underway right now where we are focused on sharing that application data with the college. We're still looking for ways to do this where all stakeholders are get what they need. Our priority right now is the admissions and records office because they're closest to the student, and that's the goal. But there are other stakeholders that want this. So that's what we're working on for the second part of this fiscal year. Some of the other ones, again, students don't know the status of their application. That's something we also want to address. Hopefully we'll get to it in this latter part of this fiscal year, but it's definitely on our radar. Getting help, how-to guides, all of those things. We're keeping those in mind as we look towards more data sharing projects with partners, leveraging more text messaging and modern advanced technology ways to communicate with students, integrating more with MyPath and leveraging the tools and the support materials and the rules and all the benefits of MyPath. We will be doing more of that this year. And then hopefully I should have put long-term dream, but no, we really want to get some live chat going. And we will, it just might not be this latter part of the year. Okay, next. Sorry if I'm talking fast, trying to get through these so we can get some questions. So back to the highlights. So we did redesign the interface of the standard non-credit Promise Grant and International to be mobile friendly. If you, hopefully you've recognized that at this point, because we actually had to make some, layout changes, I think for the better, honestly. So that, in a responsive environment, whether they're using it on their tablet or they're using it on their mobile phone, they're going to see the best representation of this application. Now we just need to do the second part of that, which is, there's a lot of text on the screen. That's where we're focused. How do we, meet the needs of the institution, fulfill our compliance with state, federal, and local requirements, and still make it user-friendly? So just want to note that, again, mobile-friendly came out in October. So students will be able to apply on their phone. We did also fix a bug in the OpenCCC system. OpenCCC UI mobile redesign is kind of a two-phase process. We're going to do the legacy version, the one that exists now, while the big redesign project is underway. We feel like it's important to have an end-to-end mobile experience. We did identify a bug early on, and we said, you know what, this whole thing needs to be mobile, even if we know that a new beautiful account system is coming in the future. Let's make this, let's focus on the student and not throw up hassles. Okay, next slide. The other thing that we're working on right now is the internationalization of CCCApply. And I say internationalization because we're developing this in a way that we can implement additional languages in the future. But right now we're focusing on Spanish. So we will be releasing a full Spanish translation version of all the apps in our next big release, which we're kind of targeting for end of March, which is like our typical annual update time of year. So pretty exciting. No more halfway Spanish hover help. This will be a full translation. So really, really excited about this. Next slide. Next slide.
Yeah, there's a question in chat around how are decisions being made for redesigning and needs for the non-credit application. So there was a subcommittee of our CCCApply user group, formerly steering committee, that addressed the non-credit questions and structures for the non-credit application. Since that application rolled in July, I believe it was, we've been collecting now feedback from the field. So it's an iterative process. And if you have ideas for how we can continue to refine that application, then we welcome them. There is a process, and we'll show that help, the support email later in the presentation. But there was a subcommittee made up of representatives with large non-credit populations who intended to utilize the application. And so that was where the redesign came from, along with these guiding principles from the full redesign effort. In terms of additional languages, we are, as Patty mentioned, the work that we're doing right now is so that in the future we can add additional languages beyond Spanish. We haven't discussed which ones will be next and what that means. So that's a future fiscal year at this point. So the Spanish efforts and making sure that that's all on aligned for the 5 apps that are listed there will be through June at this point, and then we'll start talking about what's next. But we are designing to be able to easily add other languages in the future. So if there is a specific interest, so Stephen, for Chinese students, that is something, if you'd like to put that request into Patty so that we can get documentation of that interest, that's really how we want to proceed, is to let the field drive some of that as well.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So getting back to quickly, and here we go. We'll talk about non-credit real quick. The one thing I just wanted to add to what Jennifer said about the non-credit app is, due to this, we were kind of hit with AB 31 a little bit. And it was, on July 1st, 2019, you will. And so we did have kind of a schedule and a timeline crunch on this. But we also knew that it was one of those, the majority, or, a lot of the questions applied that were in the standard application applied to both non-credit and credit. How do we do this in a way that can be easy on the college? We knew you weren't going to have a lot of time to implement. So we wanted an easy implementation. So for any of you who don't know what that looks like, it's the same interface. It's got a different URL, which we felt would be really important for non-credit, so we don't mix the two. But we've got the same downloads, the same backend administrator, the same report center. We did implement some customization for the non-credit in giving you the ability to have different, I'm going to say majors because that's what the standard says, but it actually says intended majors, programs of study. So for the non-credit crew, they could go in and have completely different majors or programs in that pull down instead of having to use the standard. A lot of the rest of the fields are the same as the standard, but we knew that had to be different. We knew that you wanted different supplemental questions and in a couple other things. So some of the legal stuff and some of the questions that we may not have leeway on, we're going to have to work with a subcommittee and get some chancellor's office or legal to help guide that. Because a lot of those are dictated by MIS. Like I know that the college enrollment, which was one of the questions we had recently, could we have different values in there for non-credit? that one is aligned verbatim to MIS reporting values. So we're just going to have to take these one at a time and work with the chancellor's office, apply our design principles, and see what we can do.
And with that being said, I know some of you may have leveraged in the past there's a document that shows the questions and why they exist within CCCApply, and it's available through our support channels. But Patty recently actually put one together where she showed specific to non-credit why the questions are there, and which ones are no longer there with regards to the standard app versus the non-credit app. So that's available as well.
And we're not giving up on this non-credit app. Believe me, we want to focus on this, and we want to hear from you and be able to make change requests that make sense. So this was really just kind of the first version, and then we will work with you. Now adoption down below, I don't know if those numbers sound great, but we just released it, and I have a feeling that we made it so easy for colleges to go live with this that there's colleges that are probably using it that we don't know about yet. So these are the ones we're just tracking through our enabling services team at this time.
And we were able, when Calbright went online on October 1st, the new online-only college, they are using the non-credit application through CCCApply, and we've actually been working with them pretty significantly over the last several months to make sure that they were able to adopt it with support and in a way that made sense for their processes and their students, and would allow their students to have a CCC ID for future matriculation to other institutions that they may utilize with regards to within the CCC system. And so we were able to work directly with them. They had a very tight schedule and deadline and looked at other options, but we were able to serve up this non-credit application that had just come online and meet their needs so that they could meet their deadline of October 1st. So that was also an exciting effort, and will allow their students to have some consistency from Calbright to our other colleges as well in terms of any future plans that they may have.
All right, and go ahead and throw questions in the chat about that. I feel like I'm rushing a little bit. I don't mean to. I just know that we got still more to do. So just kind of an overview of, since we started the redesign 18 months ago or so, the progress we've made and directly addressing barriers or concerns that have been identified. We streamlined and shortened the application pretty significantly. I know 3 pages doesn't sound like a lot, but it actually ends up being more. I just didn't want to overdo it. And we made it so that the needs and interest page could be turned off by request if you don't want that page. Actually, I should note that we made that needs and interest page. You could turn off just sections of it. So if you don't want to have that programs and services section, which if you're a MyPath college, of course you do want, or if you don't want, the whole page, you can opt out of it. Most colleges aren't doing that. So just planting the seed that we did make that happen. We added skip logic. We implemented the non-credit, residency-free non-credit app. We completely made the CCCApply suite of applications mobile friendly. The full Spanish version is coming. We also implemented the major category filter, which we could have a whole webinar on. And we also are working on making that more user-friendly, by the way. But it does allow colleges to set up either meta majors, which would be or any other type of category. And we actually named it major category for a reason, because we didn't want to force colleges into a meta major format. But it is, we really designed it for that in mind, and guided pathways, of course. So that's available now. And then just another note that, the personal information page, we knew from the study and from the student satisfaction survey, which, by the way, all you colleges have access to a student satisfaction survey report in the report center. It's a template. Let me know if you have questions about where to find that. You can set a time parameter and see all their comments that they give to you at the end of the application, and their rating, their experience, how did they rate it? and would they recommend it? But we looked at all those, and the personal questions were the number one complaint. So we said, you know what, let's move that page to the end of the application and see if that helps with, they're more they're more committed at that point to the application, not, they're not as inclined to abandon at that point because we're asking for their gender or their sexual orientation, which is controversial, but that's a federal requirement. So we think that this is going to help. We're going to be monitoring the data there and the feedback, but that's something else I just wanted to point out. This is a very short list of the things that we've done so far.
Yeah, and in terms of the personal information, one of the things that research showed several years ago was that if you asked certain types of questions too early in the process, a student would self-select out of the process because they would start to see themselves as no longer fitting the mold of a college student. So if they didn't think they were answering the questions in a way that would be expected, then they might just stop answering them because they didn't see themselves as college material or as college students. And so
that's such a good point. That's such a good point, Jennifer, because the race and ethnicity questions on that page, and even though that's optional, they don't have to answer that. That's what was one of those, this is insecure. I don't know why they're asking me for this right here. So I think that's a really good thing to mention.
Yeah, and I also wanted to mention that 3 pages may not seem like a lot until you're scrolling through it on a mobile device. And we have learned that suddenly things seem way longer on a mobile device than on a desktop. So that's also something we've been addressing.
So I'm almost done. I think there's only one more left for me. Just kind of to recap what we're working on now. So for our upcoming release, we are working on getting the Open CCC legacy system, the one that's the students are seeing right now. We're going to get that mobile, Spanish translation. The big highlight is that we are trying to beat the clock a little bit on a social security number redesign. And the only reason I say that is we've been looking at this for a while. But it's complicated. There's a lot of legal issues behind the social security number. So, but we are hoping to drastically reduce that and make it more friendly, less legalese on screen, and reformat it so that it's less confusing to the student. We're working on delivering data to colleges quicker, getting, what that looks like right now. We're still working on trying to appease every stakeholder, but again, we want to focus on the admissions and records so they can reach out and catch these kids before they abandon. Improve the Open CCC account system in ways of removing barriers.
So I want to jump in here. There's a question in the chat, but also to talk a little bit about it.
Sure.
The social security number redesign, what we are working on doing is moving the social security number question from the account creation point in Open CCC into CCCApply. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One is that we have partner organizations and colleges who would like to be able to get students an account that gets them a CCC ID and into their system without having to go through a social security number request and some of the other details that were once asked because it was originally lumped together with CCCApply. So we're moving the social security number from the account creation. So you'll solely be setting up an account and not answering questions related to things like socials and residency, moving that into Apply. And as Patty mentioned, part of the challenge there is with regards to some of the student advocacy groups who are saying we want to downplay the social security number language. It's scary. We want to make sure that students don't think that they're not going to be able to go to college if they don't have a social security number. So we're having a lot of conversations around what that language needs to be once it moves into Apply. So the complexity becomes, we are removing it from the point at which a student gets an account, but they still need to have it for federal student aid. And, we know that in 2013, there was a memo about collection of social security numbers by colleges and the IRS was involved. We want to make sure that the legal implications are being met and addressed and that we are able to really make that a more clear requirement in terms of whether you have a number or not. Right now, there, as the chat is saying, a huge number of words on the screen. We're trying to figure out what that means in terms of what are we required to say? What can we get rid of? What can we put behind a prompt? If there are questions, if someone's fine with it and submits it, that's no big deal, but we don't want it to scare them away, and we don't want to overwhelm them with legalese. And so we've been working with an organization called Immigrants Rising, and they've been assisting us with some of the language choices. We have the foundation and student services at the chancellor's office involved in terms of legal reviews. And we're really walking through this. Kudos to Patty for making sure that we don't drop some of the considerations that got us where we are with the requirements and language in the first place, that we don't end up in a worse position legally stated, but that we really revise it in a way that makes sense for our populations. And so we're talking about reordering some of the questions, explaining why a student would be required to submit their social security number if they don't do it at time of application, what that will mean in terms of if they do have it and don't submit it at time of application, what that means for future delays potentially in local college communication. So the social security number is not required as part of CCCApply. You can state that you don't have one. You can use an individual taxpayer identification number. However, there have been requests from colleges to make it clear that socials are still required for federal student aid, and that they want to make sure that we are still requesting them from students. There are some assumptions about how a student may approach the social security number to say, if they're given the option and the box says, I don't have one, I'm not going to provide one, that they just check that and move on. And they don't want that to be the default response from students. So we're working on, clarifying the language and making sure that we are still collecting it where possible, but that those students who don't have one are not self-selecting out by thinking that now they're not eligible to apply. So we're walking both sides.
You said that so well, Jennifer. And the one thing I just wanted to add to that was something you said. It was probably a chat question. So according to the chancellor's office, and I won't even go back and tell you the history of why the question looks the way it does. If you really want to know, email me, because it was not, we had to do that. We had to do that from the IRS mandate. And had to do with the getting rid of fines and legally, it was kind of like, do this and you'll be okay. But what I wanted to say was, according to the chancellor's office right now, CCCApply has to have that question in it. Now, the student doesn't have to give one because many students don't. And we also, it's stipulated in the IRS guidelines that we can't force them to give us the number in the application because, we can't base their admissions on whether they give us their social security number, but we are required to have it in the application, if that makes sense. So I just want to make sure that was clear. We have to ask it. They don't have to give it at this time, but they'd have to give it if they have one eventually. So trying to, again, navigate those waters. How do we do this and still, comply with all of the guidelines and make sure the students understand and feel comfortable. So I think, Jennifer, thanks. That was really perfect. So the other things real quick, we already talked about delivering data to the college. I just want to jump down. Last thing is some of the other little things that we were working on for spring, the homeless issue that is currently happening in Apply right now. I just want to let you all know, we've been working on the best solution for this. What's happening basically is that, if a student says, I don't have an address because I'm currently homeless. Well, the residency algorithm has a couple steps in it, a couple little pieces that says, is their address, is the address, say, California? And if it's blank, the algorithm is going, nope, it doesn't. Ping, set them as a 2. We're not saying that they're a non-resident, but we need to check on this because they could be, they could have moved here from Oregon yesterday. We don't know. What we were finding is this was causing a lot of problems, and it was unnecessary for the majority of California homeless. They're born and raised here. They have plenty of other proof that they pass residency than this address stipulation. And in fact, we got a legal opinion, informal opinion from the chancellor's office that says we should not be doing it against the address. So what we're doing is we're tweaking the algorithm to say, okay, keep that address logic in there, but if they've checked the box saying they're homeless, then we won't flag them for that. We'll flag them for there's plenty of other residency requirements in the logic that would prove whether or not they've been here for a year or 2 years. Did they go to high school here? There's all kinds of other things that we could, determine their preliminary residency on instead of that address. So this should work. We've been testing it. We had a lot of feedback and stakeholders. We believe that this will kind of appease at least the California homeless are getting dinged for this. So that's that. The undocumented non-resident, won't talk too much on this because Jennifer kind of touched on, we're working with a group called Immigrants Rising. They're amazing. They have a bunch of suggestions on how we can make the application comfortable, welcome, and clear for some of our immigrant students, the non-residents and the undocumented, also DACA. So we're looking at ways to make sure they understand the questions, and that in certain cases, their response will not necessarily affect admissions because it's unclear in some places. The dual enrolled applicants, again, we removed a bug, and that bug that was preventing students who were saying they were in high school or lower grade and going to college at the same time, the system just had a bug, and it was stopping them in their tracks and making them either provide false information or abandon. So we just did a hot fix a week or two ago on Friday night. We fixed that bug. Now dual enrolled students will not have to, they won't be presented with that. They'll be able to say whether their first time in college also being dual enrolled, or if they've been in college before in a situation like this, and provide that college information. They'll even be able to tell us that they have a degree if they have one. It's a rare edge case, but it actually came up. So this is part one. We are still going to look at how we can make that easier on them with some skip logic, but at least we've removed barriers in that respect. And then prospective students overall is that getting the information to the college sooner so that they can make sure that every student that starts an application either completes it or they're applying somewhere else, or we know that we've done everything we can to support their matriculation and get them into a seat in a class, get them enrolled, and on their way to completion. So I think that's it for me. I don't have another slide, I don't think.
No, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Caruso and introduce him. He is the product manager for CCC MyPath. And Mike, can you talk about how many colleges we now have on board with MyPath and the successes we're seeing?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm just here to give you guys a quick update with how things are going with MyPath. We are continuing to both launch colleges that have been configuring MyPath, as well as sign up new colleges who are interested in piloting and then hopefully launching the product at some point in the future. I believe we have some CRMs in the chat who might be able to give a more specific number, but I believe last I checked, at about 25 live colleges, with about 42, I think was the number I saw most recently in the configuration or live state, which means that there's about 17 more colleges that are not live yet, but who are in the process of trying to get there.
Mike, we've had a total of 47 colleges adopt.
47.
So yeah, the number's up. So
great, awesome. So yeah, a couple more than I even thought. But all that really is great news. It's good that the product's getting out there. It's good that we're starting to get feedback from the colleges about what things are working, what things they'd like to see improved, and our MyPath work group is an excellent place to help us continue to steer that product. So if you have interest in helping us design future versions of MyPath, please join us. We're looking for all the feedback we can get. Now, before
we'll
I jump
talk
in,
about how that works in just a minute.
yeah. And before I jump into some of these statistics, I do want to, for anybody who's unaware of what MyPath's or what problem statement MyPath was kind of setting to solve in the short term, we've heard from numerous places and in investigating CCCApply data that in terms of students who submit applications through CCCApply, right now, upwards of 70% of those students, and the exact percentage has changed kind of year over year. I believe one year it was 71, and then it bounced up to 73 or so. But 70+% of the total volume of electronic applications do not result in a student enrollment. So that's potentially, a million plus students that we are, as a system, missing out on the ability to serve. And honestly, the reason for that is probably quite various, right? But one of the things that we do know is that in examining the student workflow for those incoming students, they go through the online application, which, and Patty, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say that that full experience takes about an average of 15 minutes for a student to complete. They reach that final step where they submit the application, and what they get is a page that says, "Thanks for applying, we'll get back to you soon." And in the case of some colleges, that sort of next set of steps can come out very quickly. They might email that student within just a few minutes. But for the vast majority of colleges, that email comes several hours later, maybe even several days later. And that's like a period of time that is highly critical to retaining that student. We know they've given us their interest, they've sat down, they've gone through the full application, they've answered all those questions. That is the prime time to begin onboarding that student, to begin communicating with that student, and to introduce them to an experience that is sticky, right? It comes with built-in reminders. It comes with the ability to customize itself based on the student's inputs in the application, and that's what CCC MyPath does, right? When a college launches CCC MyPath, instead of that final page that says, "Thanks for applying, you'll hear from us in a couple of days," what they get is an onboarding experience that has customized tasks based on their application responses. It has the next set of steps that the college wants that student to pursue. It has built-in automated reminders that can not only email students, which we know for a lot of people is not the favored method of communication, but also send them text messages and such to keep them engaged with that matriculation process and give them a higher chance of then proceeding to that next step, that enrollment, to try to retain those students and get them to the college. So just some statistics that show how things have been going with MyPath. And all this data is just from this year. We've been live a little bit longer than that, but this year has really been the year that we've started to pick up a lot of colleges that have gone live. So from January 1 to the end of summer, July 31st, we had students complete a total of 568,095 tasks. And what tasks are in MyPath are the individual steps that colleges have configured and are saying, these are the things I want my new incoming students to do. And they can be things like reading about financial aid, doing career exploration. Like I said, it can be responsive to application inputs. So like if you're a veteran, it could be read about veteran services, those kinds of things. So that's the total number of tasks that our incoming students have completed. And that's really pretty an impressive number, I think, over a very short period of time.
And that was, we were talking about 24 live colleges, but I would say that 568,000 was definitely not 24 colleges, because many of those have come online in the last couple of months. So
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely true. And breaking that number down even further, if we're talking about what MyPath is doing on a day-to-day basis, from in that same period of time, January to the end of July, our students were completing an average of 1,576 tasks per day. So very consistent activity. But something very cool also happened during the busy fall application season, which is that students who were applying for the fall semester actually were more engaged with MyPath than average. We saw a 24% increase in daily task completions, up to 2,067 per day during that application season. So students who were applying were engaged much more heavily with the MyPath onboarding tasks than other times during the year. But this last stat is probably my favorite one, because this one really shows MyPath's efficacy in terms of its ability to capture the attention of those incoming students during that critical window of time where they've just submitted their application, and from what we can tell from the data, are not always so sure they're actually going to enroll. And so we're hoping that MyPath helps to address that. And what we're seeing is that in some of our best performing colleges, so Golden West is probably the best example of this, 84.4% of their total CCCApply applicants ended up proceeding into the onboarding process in MyPath to engage with the onboarding process. That means that almost 85% of the total number of students became engaged with that sticky platform where the college has said, here's what my next steps are for my students. I'm going to send them reminders. I'm going to send them text messages, depending on the student's preferences. I'm going to keep them engaged with the process and do everything that I can to try to get them to proceed to that next step, that enrollment, and get them in the door here. Similarly, Solano Community College did an excellent job. They had 75.3% of their total number of applicants proceed in and do onboarding. And of course, we have many other colleges kind of at various points, some performing at numbers very close to these, some a little bit lower. And really what we're hoping here is that we're showing you that MyPath has the ability to get these prospective students who you may never actually have even seen on campus were it not for this tool, and to keep them hopefully engaged in the process and give them a higher likelihood of ending up on campus there with you. So really I think that's, go ahead, sorry.
And here's the way I look at it. The tasks that are laid out in MyPath and the way that students immediately engage with them means that when they make it onto campus, the questions and engagement that they're having with you are much more in-depth and much higher level than how do I apply for financial aid? How do I buy a parking permit? Where do I get the mobile app? And so the engagements for the limited time that our counselors and advisory staff have with those students can be much more focused and get much better engagement with the student in terms of moving them along their path. And so I'm looking at MyPath as an opportunity to get those easy things out of the way so that a student can come in and sit in a counselor's office and be able to really have those hard conversations or those more in-depth conversations about where they're headed. And so that's what I like to see in these numbers, is that we're engaging them and we're then allowing them to have those much more focused conversations on campus. I see some questions here. Patty's been putting some comments in around social security number. Is there a way that we can see how other colleges are using MyPath to get ideas and how it can be used at our college? Yes, absolutely. We can actually do a couple of things. We can, and we'll talk about this a little bit in the next slide, we can offer a demo from one of our colleges so that you can see how they are currently leveraging MyPath. We're also working on making sure that we're sharing data out. So one of the questions was 84.4% registered. It's actually 84.4%. When they completed the application and hit submit, they were prompted to begin tasks in MyPath. And the 84.4% are the number of students, the percentage of students who clicked through and started MyPath tasks. That we are working on what percentage actually ended up in seats in classrooms to be able to follow that percentage through. We don't have that number yet because these are our fall numbers. So we're going to work with the colleges to get that. This is simply about engagement and completing next steps. To get a demo and to talk to other colleges, there are a couple of different things that we are looking at with regards to how you can engage with some of these tools. So we are working on that 70%, 30% number that Mike put out in being able to frame that up in what we're doing with engagement. So those numbers are pending right now. But if you're interested in MyPath, we do have a means of getting folks engaged here. First of all, we want to make sure, I'm going to talk a little bit about gathering feedback and the importance of that with regards to how we're proceeding through the redesigns that are underway and the use of MyPath in combination with CCCApply. The most important thing that we are doing is making sure we have student input. And that looks like a couple of different things right now. One is that we've partnered with colleges to go out and actually interact with students and to have them interact with students specifically to providing feedback on our tools. One thing that we did, we had one of our product managers went to a local college. He set up with several different devices and a set of questions for students to interact with the OpenCCC redesign specifically and provide feedback. One of the first things we noticed was that 24 out of 25 students selected their own mobile device to proceed through the process. So we're learning all the time with regards to direct student feedback. if you're interested and want to be able to provide some of your students for that feedback, if you have special populations, if you have opportunities to do so and concerns that you'd like to make sure are addressed, we have incentives available and are happy to partner with you on that student engagement. We're also working with the foundation with their new student-centered design lab to make sure that we're doing the same. We're going to leverage their contacts with students and get that feedback on a regular basis. And as Patty has said in the chat, there's also the student satisfaction survey results that you can pull from the report center. And one of the things that colleges have done is look at those and collect some additional specific feedback from their students and then share that back with us. So we welcome that engagement and conversation. We also have opportunities for you all as college stakeholders to provide feedback. And Patty and Mike mentioned this with regards to our user groups. So we have user groups for CCCApply and MyPath. These were formerly officially the advisory committees. We've seen some structural changes with regards to those committees, but there are these groups that meet quarterly and provide specific input into where we are headed with the products. It's things like when we have an enhancement request that's come in from multiple places and we want to make sure that we're headed in the right direction and that we're not inadvertently creating more work for all of you as stakeholders, we go to our user groups and get that feedback and have those conversations. So right now we're working on SIS integrations for MyPath. We've had conversations with users about what they need on that integration piece for local communication with their local SIS. So all those opportunities exist and will continue. And we have email addresses on our last slide. I know some of them have been in the chat in terms of reaching out. So we want that conversation to happen. We want feedback from our stakeholders and our users in pursuit of products that ultimately work for the colleges and the students. And that's what we're here for. We're here to make sure that we're delivering that type of product. Support that's available, a couple different things. ES, as it's been referred to in this presentation and was described a little bit in the chat, is our enabling services team. They are responsible for coordinating adoption and implementation and get rave reviews for their ability to walk colleges through the process of things like adopting and setting up MyPath. They provide kind of an easy button solution for most of our products and make sure that we're not intruding on otherwise prioritized IT efforts and those kinds of things to make sure that colleges can get up to speed and on board with our tools quickly. So the email that's listed there, crms@ccctechcenter.org, it reaches all of the college relationship managers. We have 3 of those. Your college has a specific one. We have Warren Whitmore, Monica Matusek, and Monica Zalikit, who serve as our primary contacts, and they are there to provide support and guidance and also connections. One of the things that we're looking at really in terms of building community is to provide connections for colleges. As the question came up earlier, how do I find someone who has set up MyPath? Specifically, we get questions. We want a banner user college with these additional tools that they're using, and we want to get live on MyPath. And our CRMs can help match you up with a college that's similar so that you can ask questions directly to an end user. We are also going to start leveraging more our online community. It's called Get Satisfaction. It's ccctechnology.info. And it's a place where users can go and ask questions, get them answered. And we're going to be expanding it so that you can go and ask questions not only of the Tech Center team members who will be part of that community, but other colleges as well. So, I have an advisor card in MyPath that I'm looking to utilize for this purpose. Who else has tried this and what are you seeing in terms of results? What are your recommendations? Those kinds of conversations that we want to really encourage because we want these tools to be fully utilized and helpful out in the world.
Hey, Jen,
yes.
Can I just add to that real quick? Because one other thing about that, that online community, ccctechnology.info, it is also for CCCApply anyway. It is our report issues, report incidents, report bugs. And if they already exist, or our hope is that if there is an incident, like, hey, the report center's down, you'll go there and someone else will have reported it. And so you can kind of just tap into that post thread. You can follow a thread and get an email notification, or you can just not follow it. But we're hoping that, you know, this saves you time, but we want you to use it to report issues and bugs. And then we will jump on those. And if it is a legitimate issue, we will, you know, set up a support ticket and reach out once we set up a Zendesk ticket. But it's, you know, it's also for reporting support needs. And we also communicate information like, you know, releases that are coming up. And we try to get ahead of these issues, incidents too. Like we'll post something that says, hey, we know the report center's down, we're working on it, it'll be up and, you know, soon. So anyway, sorry, just wanted to add that.
Yeah, so it's 1 o'clock now. I know we've reached the end of our hour. I know there are some questions in the chat. Stephen, I'm gonna recommend that you email Mike Caruso. And Mike, if you can note Stephen's question regarding the extended ethnicity categories with the MIS student basic file. And these are the email addresses for Patty and Mike and myself. And we welcome questions. And if you're interested in additional information about any of the tools, please reach out. We're happy to help, and watch for some additional communication around the expansion of our user communities so that you can also have those conversations with other colleges. Otherwise, thank you all for your time today. I hope that we hear from you and that you're interested in participating in our user groups and in communicating and contacting your students for feedback, and we welcome that. So thank you all for your time.